Hello, and welcome to Opening Bars. I think this is easily one of the most powerful and moving songs that I have ever heard, written in 1991 by Reid and Shamblin. It has been a favorite of mine ever since I first heard it. Adele, Boyz II Men, Prince, Nancy Wilson, and George Michael, among others, have all covered this song, although it's Bonnie Raitt's version with Bruce Hornsby at the piano that's my favorite. Looking at the grand staff, we're going to be using the bass clef in the right hand as well as the left hand. There are two flats in the key signature, so we are either in B flat major or G minor. When you listen to the song, you will likely realize that the tonality is major, although it is somehow transcendent and doesn't feel the way a happy major key often does. This is accomplished by adding sevenths and other tones to obscure the tonality, much like Debussy pioneered in the early turn of the 20th century, and by purposefully staying away from the tonic and centering on the subdominant. In fact, there are only two times in the chorus that a full tonic chord in root position is ever even realized, on the words love me and on the word heart. I think that we should look at this holistically and consider all of the notes in the right hand and left hand together to get a sense of the chords that are being used. Looking at the very first chord then, if we add up the notes we get an E flat, G, and B flat, and another B flat. There are only three distinct notes, all within E flat major with an actual E flat at the bottommost note, so we are in fact in E flat major root position. The next chord of this measure contains a G, B flat, F, and A natural. In this instance, we're missing the fifth of the chord, the D, but we've added a ninth instead, which is the A. The next measure is an exact mirror copy of the first, so that's easy enough. The third measure begins again on an E flat major triad in root position, and then moves to B flat major, but over the third of its structure, namely the D. This first inversion chord is very powerful, the D really wanting to pull right back to the E flat, but here it cleverly uses itself to propel to the G instead, and adds a colorful F to form a G minor 7, before finally settling on a C, E flat, G, and B flat, which is a C minor 7 chord. Now that's really lovely. To be honest, I'm not sure just how helpful a harmonic analysis for this piece will be. As you can see, we are in B flat major but begin on an E flat major chord and end the opening bars on C minor. There are two instances of the subdominant 4 chord, two of the submediant 6 in the minor, and one tonic chord in first inversion. There just doesn't feel like any true sense of harmonic settlement or closure here, which in fact perfectly mirrors the sentiments of the lyrics in a way that makes this piece all the more beautiful and haunting. Now let's look at the rhythm. You can see that we are in 4/4 time, meaning that we have a 4 quarter note pulse in each measure. Like Adele's Hello in Lesson 1, the chords move on beats 1 and the and of 2, while the melody moves independently above. Counting out loud is a good technique, or you can also use the melody, which will help you find out exactly where the chords need to be placed. Let's count them out loud in subdivided eighths now. We'll be counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and as we play through this excerpt. Be wary of the ties from the 2 and over to the beat 3. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now that you know all of the notes and the rhythm, you can concentrate on advancing specific piano techniques. One area you can focus on while practicing is to balance all of the notes in the chord clusters, giving equal weight to each note. But at the same time, you want to bring out the melody so that it is clearly connected and audible. This is a skill that you will need to spend some time working on to balance all the voices when you're accompanying a melody line in the same hand. This is particularly true and tricky when you're playing the thirds in the very last measure. Spend quality time listening and feeling your fingers on the keyboard with your eyes closed to find the exact velocities and weights to achieve this effect. I would also recommend turning your attention to the little counter melody which you will be playing with your thumb in the right hand. Sing along, add words if you wish, anything to tune your ear to hearing it clearly in your mind. Play it without the top melody, like this. And then play it all together. Now let's see if we can extend our musicianship with these opening bars. So, if you've looked on the internet for sheet music to this piece, the previous page is likely what you would have seen. But if you listen to the actual recording, you'll hear that something a little bit more sophisticated is going on. And in fact, on the George Michael Live MTV recording, you can see two keyboardists, but we're going to try and combine them into one for ourselves. Looking at the notation here in front of you, you might become a little concerned about the amount of notes. But if you take a closer look, however, you'll be relieved to discover that the left hand is exactly the same, and the melody is still recognizable. And you can see that melody with the stems pointing down in the first two measures. What we are adding here is an additional note on top of the pattern we played on the previous page. These are the stems pointing up, and you can see that the first interval is a sixth starting on a G, and then that topmost note moves down to an F in the first measure. The F is then retained in measures 2 and 4. Notice that measure 3 remains exactly as before, so nothing fancy there, and yet the tricky part is again to balance the chords and bring out the melody voice, now primarily using your second, third, and fourth fingers only. Now that's fun. It's a fantastic skill to learn how to bring out melodies playing multiple notes in one hand, and I think this example will give you ample opportunity to practice this advanced piano technique. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Remember, don't just play notes. Make music. Until next time, thanks for listening.